The front door slammed so hard it felt like thunder rolled through my house. The walls shuddered, the picture frames clinked, and my coffee nearly jumped out of the mug in my hand. Before I could process what was happening, a woman in her 50s stormed into my kitchen like a tornado wearing perfume and polyester. Her face was twisted in the kind of rage usually reserved for crime scenes, not cul-de-sacs. She had a clipboard clenched in one hand, a pen like a weapon in the other, and a little golden pin glinting on her lapel that read, "Willowbrook HOA President. This is your third violation this month," she barked. "Your grass is half an inch too tall. Your trash cans were visible for 37 minutes after pickup. And that mailbox, good Lord, that thing is a disgrace." I just stood there in the doorway, my coffee halfway to my lips, watching this stranger storm through my kitchen as if she owned the place. She brushed a finger along my countertop like she was inspecting for contraband, then, God help me, opened my refrigerator. Her nose wrinkled like she'd caught a whiff of moral decay. "Excuse me," I said, forcing my voice steady. "You need to leave. Right now." She spun toward me with a practiced flair, her bleached hair swinging over her shoulder. "I'm Karen Thompson," she announced, her voice dripping with authority she didn't actually have. "President of the Willowbrook Homeowners Association. I have the right to inspect any property in this community." I stared at her for a long second. Then I smiled. "No, you don't." I stepped forward slowly, the way I used to when I was still on the job, measured calm, giving her space to realize she'd just crossed a line. "My name is Detective James Morrison. 20 years on the force, recently retired. I bought this little house at the end of the street because I wanted peace. A garden. Barbecues on weekends. The sound of crickets instead of sirens. But peace doesn't last long when people like Karen exist. I'd been in Willowbrook less than a month when I first met her. She appeared on my porch like a census worker from hell, waving a rulebook thicker than a phone directory. The mailbox was 2 inches below regulation height. My driveway had a faint oil stain that apparently violated subsection 12.4 of the community guidelines. And my American flag, she told me with absolute seriousness, was the wrong shade of blue. At first, I tried to be civil. Old habits die hard, and patience had kept me alive in rooms full of people far more dangerous than her. I nodded, smiled, fixed what I could, and ignored the rest. The neighbors, though, they all had that same weary look when I mentioned her name. "That's just Karen," they said, like it was a weather forecast. "Don't take it personal. She's been running this place for years." But then came the barbecue. It was a Saturday evening, warm and easy, a few neighbors over, music low, burgers sizzling. Nothing wild, nothing loud. The clock hadn't even touched 8. Karen appeared at 6:30, like she'd been waiting for her cue, carrying a tape measure and a glare sharp enough to cut steel. 4.7 feet, she announced, measuring the distance from my grill to the fence. "Regulations require 5. You're in violation." That night marked the beginning of her campaign. Anonymous notes began appearing on my door, typed in bold capital letters. "Your hedges are crooked. Your doormat is the wrong color. Your vehicle was facing the wrong direction for 14 minutes. Then came the photos. I'd catch the flash of her phone camera over my fence at night, her shadow flickering in the yard. Once, I found her balanced on a stepladder outside my garage, peering in through the window like a burglar in pearls. When I confronted her, she said she was documenting inconsistencies for record-keeping. But the worst wasn't the harassment, it was the gossip. She built an entire Facebook group dedicated to exposing my infractions. Every post featured blurry photos of my property and long, angry paragraphs about how I was degrading community standards. She even photoshopped a picture of my lawn to make it look brown and patchy. By then, half the neighborhood had joined her circus, some watching out of fear, others out of morbid curiosity. Still, I let it go. 20 years of police work had taught me one thing: never engage crazy if you can help it. But Karen didn't believe in boundaries. She mistook patience for weakness. And one afternoon, she crossed a line she could never uncross. It was a quiet Sunday. I was in the backyard replacing a few warped boards on the fence. I had my noise-canceling headphones on, Classic rock humming just loud enough to drown the world out. I didn't hear the door open. When I came back inside, the air felt wrong. You ever walk into a room and just know someone's been there? Drawers slightly open, papers out of place, the kind of silence that hums with guilt. Then I saw her. Karen Thompson stood at my dining table, bent over like a thief cataloging stolen goods. My mail, personal letters, bills, even a birthday card for my mother, was spread out in neat little rows. She was photographing each one with her phone. My drawers were open, my calendar flipped, my private notes scattered. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" I asked. She jumped but recovered quickly, straightening her shoulders like a guilty kid pretending to be brave. "I'm performing an HOA inspection," she said, waving that clipboard like it was a warrant. "You've been reported for multiple violations. I'm within my rights." I took my phone out of my pocket and hit record. "No," I said quietly. "You've just committed a felony. Breaking and entering, trespassing, invasion of privacy, take your pick." Her lips curled. "Don't be ridiculous. The HOA charter allows interior inspections if there's cause." "Really?" I asked, folding my arms. "Show me." She started flipping through her papers, voice rising, color draining from her face. "It's implied," she stammered. "How else would I verify compliance?" I took out my wallet, flipped it open, and showed her the badge that had spent 2 decades in my pocket. "Detective James Morrison," it read, under the city police seal. Her expression broke like glass. "You're a cop," she whispered. 20 years, I said. "And that camera in the corner? It's been recording since you walked through my door. So has the one in the kitchen. And the one by the entrance caught you letting yourself in." Her clipboard slipped from her hands and hit the floor. Panic twisted her features. "This is a misunderstanding," she gasped. I knocked. "I thought I heard you say come in from the backyard." I raised an eyebrow. "Through noise-canceling headphones? That's impressive hearing, Karen." I started dialing my phone. "You can explain it to the officers." "Wait," she said, voice cracking. "We can work this out. I'll leave right now. I'll forget this ever happened." "That's not how crime works," I told her. "You don't get to commit a felony and hit the undo button." "Please," she whispered. "I have a reputation. A business. This will destroy me." "You should have thought of that before you broke into someone's home," I said. She tried again. "I'll resign from the HOA. I'll pay for your fence. Whatever you want." But it was too late. Sirens were already wailing down the street. 2 patrol cars pulled up a few minutes later. Officer Martinez and his partner stepped inside, calm but alert. I handed them my phone and showed them the footage. Karen rummaging through my mail, snapping photos, snooping like she owned the place. Their faces hardened. "Ma'am," Martinez said, "please stand up and put your hands behind your back." "You can't arrest me," she cried, stumbling back. "I'm the HOA president. I know the mayor. My husband's a lawyer." Martinez kept his voice even. "That doesn't matter. You're under arrest for criminal trespass and unlawful entry." The sound of handcuffs clicking shut echoed through the room like justice itself. "This is ridiculous," she shouted. "It's his word against mine." "Actually," I said, holding up my phone, "it's your actions against high-definition video evidence." As they walked her out, she threw one last glare over her shoulder. "You'll regret this. I'll sue you for false arrest. The HOA will destroy you." I smiled, looking forward to it. Outside, neighbors had gathered, quiet, stunned, but not surprised. Mrs. Chun from 2 doors down started clapping. Bob across the street raised his beer in salute. Even the Johnson kids were filming from their porch, eyes wide. The next day, the whole neighborhood changed. For years, people had tiptoed around her tyranny, trimming their hedges out of fear and painting their fences to her liking. But once they saw her in handcuffs, something shifted. It was like the spell broke. The district attorney moved fast. Between the security footage, witness statements, and the photos from her own phone, the case was airtight. She was charged with criminal trespass, unlawful entry, and attempted identity theft. Maximum sentence: 3 years and 25 grand in fines. Her husband, the lawyer she bragged about, begged for a plea deal, but the prosecutor refused to play politics. 2 months later, Karen Thompson stood in front of a judge. Gone was the polished hair, the confident stance, the smug superiority. She looked small, fragile. The judge read the charges aloud, and her eyes glistened. 1 year probation, 5,000 in fines, 200 hours of community service. But the sentence was only the beginning of her downfall. The HOA board held an emergency meeting that same week. The vote was unanimous. Karen was stripped of her presidency. I watched from the back of the room as neighbors, people who'd once whispered about her, stood up one by one and told stories. Stories about harassment, intimidation, tape measures and letters, fines for imaginary violations. She sat there red-eyed, trembling, as every ounce of power she'd hoarded slipped away. Her real estate agency dropped her a few days later. The local newspaper plastered her mugshot on the front page under the headline, "HOA President Arrested for Breaking into Officer's Home." The photo said everything. The woman who once wielded fear now looked terrified herself. The best part? Willowbrook became a better place overnight. The gossip stopped. The neighbors started talking again, not in whispers, but with genuine warmth. We held block parties, shared tools, helped each other out. The fences stayed the same height, the mailboxes stayed crooked, and nobody cared. One afternoon, months later, I was mowing my lawn when Mrs. Chun walked by with her dog. She smiled. "You know, detective, it's peaceful now." I laughed. "That's what I was hoping for when I moved here." She nodded toward the street where Karen's house sat empty. "You gave the neighborhood its freedom back." Maybe that's true. Or maybe Karen just reminded everyone what happens when power goes unchecked. Either way, peace finally had a home again. And me? I went back to my garden, my grill, and my quiet weekends. The sirens were gone, replaced by the sound of birds and laughter drifting down the street. Sometimes I'd catch myself glancing at the spot where she once stood, clipboard in hand, ready to conquer the world with petty rules and a bad attitude. Funny thing is, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Because in the end, all Karen Thompson ever really wanted was control. And the one thing she could never handle was losing it.